I shall recite the first verse of the Padukasahasram of the first chapter, Prabhava Paddhati. Santa Sriranga Prithvisha Charanatrana Shekharaha Jayanti Bhavanatrana Padapankajarinavaha. So we shall go to the first verse of the third chapter, Prabhava Paddhati. Vande Tadranganathasya Manyam Padukayor Yugam Unnatanam Avanatirnatanam Yatra Chonnatihi. So yesterday we missed the third verse. So we will take up the third verse. My video is seen by you all? Okay.
Yes, Prabhupada.
Vedopabrahmana kutuhalina nibaddham Vishwambhara Shruti Bhavena Maharshina Vyasena Yatcha Madhusudana Padarakshe Dve Chakshushi Tadanubhavam Avekshitum Naha. Now Vedantadeshika, the celebrated author of Sri Padukasahasram, starts in this Prabhava Paddhati the greatness of Paduka, the divine sandals, which has been already made popular by the first great epic, namely Srimad Ramayana. So now he says, Vedantadeshika says in his third verse in the Prabhava Paddhati, Valmiki, the author of the Adikavyam, has been very inquisitive and curious to explain the subtle meanings of the scriptures. So Veda Upabrahmana Kutuhalina. So Valmiki is given an adjective that is very curious to explain Upabrahmana, to elucidate the principles of the scriptures embedded in Ramayana. So Vedopabrahmana Kutuhalina. And therefore, he composed the shlokas. Nibaddham. And how was he? We already saw in the first chapter, Prabhava Paddhati, that he was Valmika Sambhava. He was born from the ant hill. So the ant hill is supposed to be called the ear, E-A-R, of the earth. And therefore, so Valmiki, here Vedantadeshika says Vishwambhara Shruti. Vishwambhara is the word that all of you may know, that it refers to the goddess of earth, Bhuma Devi. So Musteva Vishwambhara, Vedantadeshika calls it in Dashavatara Stotram. Vishwambhara is the name, one of the names of the goddess of earth. So Valmiki becomes the ear of the goddess of earth. So Vishwambhara Shruti Bhavena. Who was Valmiki? Maharshina. He was a great sage. And this is about Ramayana. The first half of this third verse of Prabhava Paddhati is about Valmiki, who wrote Ramayana. Then you have the next one, the second epic, the greatest epic, longest epic in quantity and quality. Mahatvacha, Bharatvacha, Mahabharatam, we say. Because it is great and because it is quality-wise and quantity-wise. So Vyasena, so Vyasaya Vishnu Rupaya, Vyasa Rupaya Vishnave. So one of the incarnations of Lord Vishnu is Vyasa. So he is none other than Lord Mahavishnu. So Vyasena, so by Veda Vyasa, he is also called Krishna Dvaipayana. He is also Matsya Gandhi Putraha. He is also called the son of Parashara Maharishi. And therefore, Vyasam Vasishtanaptaram Shakte Pautram Akalmasham Parasharatmajam Mande Shukatatam Taponidhim. So you all know this verse, which we recite at the beginning of the recitation of Sri Vishnu Sahasranamam. So Vyasena Yaticha. So Vyasa, by Vyasa also, the scriptures have been explained. Hey Madhusudana Padarakshe, oh, the divine sandals attached to the divine feet of Lord Mahavishnu, who is given an adjective here as Madhusudana. You know the names? So Madhusudanaya Namaha. So Madhu is one of the twin demons born out of the Lord himself. And since these two demons gave trouble by stealing away the scriptures, and they have to be quelled, and therefore he is called Madhusudana. So Madhusudana is another name here for Sri Ranganatha of Sri Rangam in the idol form, what we call Archavatar. Madhusudana Padarakshe. Now, in order to see clearly any object and have a divine vision, especially of the divine sandals of Sri Ranganatha's feet, we have to have two eyes, a pair of eyes. So any human being, normal human being, has got the two eyes, which are very important. So the two eyes are Dve Chakshushi. So our two eyes, Naha Dve Chakshushi. So it is possible for us to have two eyes through which we want to understand, oh, divine sandals, your greatness. Tat anubhavam avekshitum. In order to have a clear understanding of the greatness of these divine sandals, so we have two eyes. Those two eyes are number one, Srimad Ramayanam of Valmiki, and number two, Mahabharatam of Sri Vedavyasa. So this is followed by the next verse, which we explained yesterday. And so we understand that the good people with the pure intellect, they always visualize truthfully the Ramayanam. And you find also Mahabharatam also contains the story of Ramayanam. It also contains the greatness of the divine sandals explained. So this is because of the greatest style of Valmiki and Vyasa, that whether it is brief or in detail, we can understand the greatness of the divine sandals. So I read the fourth verse, which we read yesterday. Pratyakshayanti parishuddha dhiyo yathavat Ramayane Raghupurandara Padarakshe Shashvat Prapanchitamidam Param Eva Yutya Vritya Sankshepa Vistara Dashasu Tavanubhavam. So that means, so it is enough that we read the two great epics, the twin epics, namely Srimad Ramayanam and Sri Mahabharatam, so that we need not struggle hard to understand scriptures to find out at least a little, according to our capacity, a little amount of greatness, which is vast with regard to the divine sandals. Now that's what he is going to present in the next verse, in the number 5 in the Prabhava Paddhati, the third chapter. Alpashrutaihi api janaihi anumiyase tvam ranga isha padu niyatam nigama upagita saram tadartham upabrahmayitum pranitam Ramayanam tava mahimni yatah pramanam. Now, Vedantadeshika expects us to read Ramayanam initially and then Mahabharatam in order to understand the greatness of the divine science. But if we find it difficult, if we are not comfortable with the meaning of scriptures, unless we read, only when we read Sayana's Bhashyam commentary of the scriptures, we can understand. And there are many places where the divine feet are mentioned of Sri Mahavishnu, and therefore you will find that in one of the best incarnations, namely Vamana, or otherwise called Trivikrama, we have famous quotations from scriptures. Idam Vishnu Vichakrame Tredha Nidadhe Padam Samudhamasya Pagum Sure. And we have another sentence. Pado Osya Vishwa Bhutani Tripadasya Amritam Divi Tripadurdhau Dait Purusha Pado Osya Bhavat Punah Tato Vishwang Vyakramat. So such sentences give us the greatness of the divine feet of the Lord. And whenever the word divine feet are mentioned, then you have the sandals also permanently or ever attached to the divine feet. Therefore, so we can take them as they are. So, and when we read about the greatness of the divine feet of the Lord, that means they are also similar to the greatness of the divine sandals, which are permanently attached to the divine feet. So in Trivikrama Avatara, as the Vamana, the dwarf form, grew into a universal form, then also the Padukas, the divine sandals, got attached to the feet. So now he calls, He Rangesha Padu, He Ranganatha Padu, Ranga Isha Padu, the Lord of Sri Rangam. He has got the sandals, so Rangesha Padu. Niyatam, surely, Nigamopagita, the scriptures adore you permanently or ever. But how do we understand? So even when we have a glimpse of scriptures, Alpashrutaihi apijanaihi, we are the people who cannot study all the scriptures in one's lifetime because Ananta vai Veda, scriptures are endless. Scriptures are very many. And even a single scripture cannot be mastered in a single lifetime. And after studying, of course, on the entire scripture of one Veda, we cannot, we have to spend a few more years to understand the meaning of the scriptures. Of course, we must try to chant and understand the scriptures, but due to the paucity of time that we spend on other matters in this world, we are always of little knowledge. Alpashrutaihi apijanaihi. So what do we do then? When we are not able to study the scriptures, when we are not able to understand the scriptures fully about the greatness of the divine sandals, so we have to guess. We have to make a pure guess. Anumi yase tvam. So the greatness of the divine sandals is guessed, and we understand that the scriptures always praise, appreciate the divine sandals. So in order to understand very clearly and easily, we have another strategy, namely go through Srimad Ramayana. So tadartham upabrahmayitum, in order to understand the detailed meaning of the essence of the scriptures which praise the divine sandals, Ramayanam pranitam. So Ramayana was composed. Tava mahimni. So on your greatness. Therefore, that becomes the authority. Yatah pramanam. So we find easily that the greatness can be understood through the study of Srimad Ramayana. In the very first canto, Prathama Sargaha of Balakanda, the first chapter in Srimad Ramayana, you find a brief introduction to the greatness of the divine sandals. Later on, as all of you know, that Bharata requested Sri Rama to give him the blessing with the sandals, and the sandals were placed on the throne in Ayodhya, as I said earlier yesterday, and they were the sandals, divine sandals were ruling for 14 years without an iota of blemish, and it was rather better than any other king of the solar race. No child died prematurely. Everyone was following his duty properly. These were the two highlighted specialities of the good administration of the divine sandals at Ayodhya for 14 years, till Rama returned from the forest life. So here, we go to the fifth one. Fifth one that we just now saw. We are going to sixth one. Now, if we are feeling sorry, rather shameful that we are not able to understand scriptures, chant scriptures, understand clearly the concepts of the meanings of scriptures, then he says, don't worry about it. So Vedantadeshika says, Ma suchaha, tishtantu shrutayaha. Let them be there. Let the scriptures be there. Let us not worry much about it. So tishtantu shrutayaha, tatopi mahitam jagatti tatpaduke. So it is it's not necessary now that we must go delve deep into the meanings of scriptures with a hard study. Tattadrik prathanaya. Now, in order to understand the fame of the divine sandals, tavaka guna grahamaya. So there is a host of good characteristics, kalyana guna, auspicious qualities of the divine sandals. Tavaka guna grahamaya. So what is it there for us to understand? Ramayanam. So we have Ramayanam for understanding clearly the greatness of the divine sandals. So in order to understand the greatness of the divine sandals, the qualities of the divine sandals, the endless number of the characteristics of auspicious characteristics of the divine sandals, it is enough we read Ramayana. Now, why we say Ramayanam? Ramayanam consists of, as you know, 24,000 slokas, and they are easy to understand. But when their commentaries are read, we can understand deeply. And then, and there also you have so many easy ways of understanding. And you have the best commentary by one great scholar, Govindaraja. So Govindarajiyam, the commentary is called Govindarajiyam. So when you study this, then we can more easily understand Ramayana. So what happens? Now, how did Ramayana become so easy for us to study, for all of us to study? Now, that is explained in the second half of the sixth verse of this third chapter, namely Prabhava Paddhati of Sri Padukasahasram. Yasya asit. So Ramayana was composed. So how is it composed? Aravinda Sambhava Vadhu Manjira Sinjarava Spardha Durdhara Pada Baddha Panitihi. So in future, we are all going to come across such a great, big, long compound word in Sanskrit. So in the third quarter of this verse, third pada, so we have the first two words, Yasya Asit. So whose was? Ramayanam has Aravinda Sambhava Vadhu Manjira Sinjarava Spardha Durdhara Pada Paddhapanitihi. This is an adjective to Valmiki, the author of the first ornate poetry in Sanskrit, Adikavyam, namely Srimad Ramayana. So who is he? We already saw Valmika Sambhavaha. We also saw in this Prabhava Paddhati that Vishwambhara Shruti Bhaven. So we had the adjective like this in the previous verse. So Vishwambhara Shruti Bhavaha Valmiki. So Valmiki is given a new adjective here. So what did he do? Valmika Janma Kavihi. He was born from the anthill, and his statement, Panitihi, was a good statement, auspicious statement. Mangalavachakam, Mangalavachanam. But what was his Mangalavachanam? Padabadha Panitihi. He composed in the form of poetry the whole Ramayana. And as you know, we always call any Sanskrit verse as shloka, whereas only Ramayana, Mahabharata, many Puranas have been written in the form of shlokas, which I explained to you in the first session of the Prabhava Paddhati in this Padukasahasram. Namely, I just give it in briefly now. So a shloka is defined to be consisting of 32 syllables. They are called aksharan. Aksharam is syllable. And so each 32 syllables of 24,000 shlokas are called granthas in Sanskrit. Though the word grantha we would have heard about as meaning book. Grantha means book. Granthi means not, K-N-O-T. And grantha here means a collection of 32 syllables. So we can say just 24,000 granthas of Srimad Ramayana. So the grantha, each grantha has got 32 syllables. And in each quarter of this four, in each grantha, namely each shloka, the third syllable will be heavy. Of course, it is unwritten rule. The fifth syllable should be light. The sixth syllable in all quarters will be heavy. And the seventh syllable will be alternately heavy and light. So this is the definition of a shloka. Panchamam laghu sarvatra, saptamam dvichaturthayoho, shashtancha guru sarvesham, etat shlokasya lakshanam. In the same pattern, Valmiki wrote, except of course according to the Mahakavya definition, the last verses of each canto, sarga, will be in different meter. Otherwise, so you can say, so 23,000 at least will be in the form of shloka. And therefore, Padabadha, they have been composed in a particular pattern. Padabadha. Each shloka has got four quarters, pada, and therefore this is called poetry. Padabadha. Whereas if you talk about a long word, compound word like this, just as you see on the screen, Aravinda Sambhava Vadhu Manjira Sinjara Vaspardha Durdhara Pada Paddhapanitihi. This is only looks like prose. But if you want to make it poetry, you have to add syllables and make it actually the second half of the verse. Yasya asit. Now, so what is the meaning of this adjective? Big adjective. Panitihi. a man of good statement. Padapaddha panitihi, a man of good poetical statement with a particular specific pattern. Padapaddha panitihi. So how is the statement? Very beautiful. Why? Because it competes with spardha competition. So it competes with the beautiful sound. When you read Ramayana shlokas, you can sing them in any raga, tune. So you can use any raga to sing the shlokas of Ramayana. There are varieties of Carnatic music ragas. You can use any of them. And that is the beauty of Srimad Ramayana. So it is very difficult to compete with what? Sinjarava, Rava sound. Sinjarava, the jingling sound. So where is the jingling sound coming from? Manjira, from the anklets. So anklets are worn by whom? Vadhu, the wife. Whose wife? Aravinda Sambhava, who was born in lotus. Who was born in lotus? Lord Creator. Brahma was born in lotus. The Lord of creation appeared from the lotus. Aravinda Sambhava, Aravinda lotus. Aravinda is exactly red lotus, beautiful red lotus. So Aravinda Sambhava is Brahma. Brahma Vadhu is Saraswati. Saraswati is anklets. Manjira. So when the goddess of education, Saraswati, sings and dances, and the sound of the anklets is sweet, and they are competing, the sound of the anklets is competing with the sound of the shlokas of Ramayana. So who wins? Both have what we call draw. So Sambhava, Aravinda Sambhava Vadhu Manjira Sinjarava Spardha Durdhara Padapaddha Panitihi. So when Valmiki has written beautifully with the reverberating musical note, almost equally competing with the sweet sound of the anklets of the goddess of education, we say, Ya kundendu tusharahara dhavala, Ya shubhra vastravrita, Ya veena varadanda mandita kara, Ya shveta padmasana, Ya brahmachyuta shankara prabhridibi, devai sada pujita, Samam patu saraswati bhagavati, Nishesha jadyapaha. We say a long verse adoring the goddess of knowledge. We have, all of you know this one, Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidya Arambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. So we have so many prayers to Lord Goddess Saraswati. So Saraswati also has in her hand, Veena. Tantri, it's called Tantri. And she is also playing the Veena. The sounds of Veena, the sounds of anklets of her dancing legs also compete with the sweet sound of Valmiki's verses. So, Yasyasi Daravinda Sambhava Vadhu Manjira Sinjarava Spardha Durdhara Padapaddha Panitir Valmika Janma Kavihi. So, we understand that Ramayana is an easy method of understanding the greatness of the divine sandals, where so it is not necessary to study with rather indifference the scriptural meanings. Perhaps it is very easy to study Ramayana and understand the greatness of the divine sandals. Now, as we go on reading this Padukasahasram, we will understand this greatness of these two divine sandals. from the Ramayana. So, shall we go to the next one? So, before we go to the next one, I wanted to tell you the Ramayana incident, which all of us may know. So, once Valmiki went to take bath in a river called Tamasa, and when he was reaching the banks of the river, he saw a bird shot by an arrow by a hunter in the forest area in the vicinity of the river bank. And therefore, so when he saw the bird dying, and there was a pair of the bird, the husband and the wife bird. It's called a crauncha bird. Sheldrake bird is called sheldrake in English. You can say pigeon or sparrow, something like that. So the sheldrake bird, one of them was dying and the other was crying. And when Valmiki saw this harsh act of the hunter, immediately words came out of his mouth. They looked like a curse. Almost it's a curse on the hunter. Mahanishada patishthantvam agamas shashwati samaha yatkrauncha mithunadekam avadhi kamamohitam. He started cursing the hunter immediately on seeing the bird suffering. The two birds suffering, one was dying, the other was crying. And therefore, he said, "O hunter, hey Nishada." So, ma Nishada, ma patishthantvam agamaha. You will not be peaceful in life in future. For many births, shashwati samaha. For many years, O hunter, you will not be peaceful in life. You will not be happy in life. Because you killed a bird. Yat krauncha mithunat. When the pair of birds was enjoying the company of each other, you shot and made it die. So mithunat ekam avadihi kamamohitam. They were in love with each other. And you killed it. And therefore, so you will not be peaceful in your future life. So this was a curse. And after saying the curse, immediately he realized, oh, bad words have come out of his mouth, and he has cursed the hunter. He regretted. But immediately, Brahma, Lord Creator, came to his rescue and said, this shloka, though you understood, you blurted out within seconds, in no time. It looks like a curse to you, but it is a Mangala shloka for Srimad Ramayana. So you can understand deeply, if you go deeply into every word, you can understand all the 7 kandas meaning, 7 chapters meaning, from Balakanda to Uttarakanda, in this single shloka of 32 syllables. So we will take it up later. So what happened was, by the blessings of Saraswati, the goddess of education, and Brahma, the Lord of creation, the shloka has become, the curse has become an auspicious statement. And therefore, we call him Madhumaya Panitinam Margadarshi Maharshi. The great sage Valmiki was the leader, guide to people, to the poets who talk sweetly. This was a statement given by King Bhoja of the kingdom Dhara in those times. So he said, Madhumaya Panitinam Margadarshi Maharshi. So in this way, Ramayana became very sweet. Even the curse became a Mangala shloka. Even what happened was, Shokaha Shlokatvam Agataha. the grief, the sadness which Valmiki experienced on seeing the bird suffering, or seeing the birds, two birds suffering, then the grief itself, the sadness itself became shloka. You find the beauty in the word. Shoka becomes shloka. Only one letter is extra. Shoka becomes shloka. So the sadness became 24,000 slokas. A small sadness. You could have avoided seeing the suffering of the birds. You could have been indifferent towards the birds. But because of his karunya, because of his mercy towards the fellow beings, even if it is a bird, that Valmiki's mind was so emotional that he was like God in feeling the sadness along with another fellow being, a fellow living being in this world. So that was the greatness of the Lord. I mean, the author, Valmiki. That's why we call him Bhagavan Valmiki, Maharishihi Valmiki, great sage. Now we are going to the next one. So, Bhakti Prahvapura Prabhanjana Jati Vati Jata Vati Sanidas Purat Chudaragvadha Vasana Parimalas Sthane Stumaf Paduke Rangakshoni Bhritangri Padma Yugali Purna Prapatte Palam Phalam Nischinvanti Vipaschita Shamadhana Nityam Yaduttam Sanam. Now, we must follow elders. That is the essence of this shloka. So, since Vedantadeshika and other great men like him appreciated the God's belongings like the divine sandals, we must also try to emulate them. And therefore, so we understand how people adore. So what do they do? Great people, look at the last pada, the quarter. Shamadhanaha. Dhanam, as you know, money, wealth. Shamadhanaha. Shama is self-control. People of self-control. So when they have their mind, the 11th sense organ, and also the other 10 organs under control, so they are called shamadhana. So when they control all their faculties, and then they become scholars, vipaschitaha. The person who can clearly see anything spiritual is called vipaschit. So vipaschitaha is a plural form, the Bahuvachana form of vipaschit. So vipaschitaha shamadhanaha. The visarga is missing because of the conjunction. So what do? So great scholars who have got the self-control as their wealth, nischinmanti, they decide, they make a conclusion. So what do they conclude? They concluded that they must worship the divine sandals of Ranganatha. Nityam, forever, for all the time, 24/7. Yat uttamsam. So the decoration. So what is the decoration here? What do they advocate? Phalam, the fruit, the good result. What is the good result? Rangakshoni bhradangri padma yugali purna prapattehe. So all those who have got self-control as their wealth and their knowledge is unlimited, they make a total surrender. Prapattehe, by the total surrender. So purna prapattehe, by the total surrender, full surrender. So where do they make the surrender? Yugali, in the two, in the pair. Padma Yugali, the lotus pair. What is that lotus pair? Angri Padma Yugali. They are the divine feet as the lotus. The lotus like divine feet of whose divine feet? Ranga, Choni, Bhrit. Ranga, Srirangam, Choni, the earth. So the area of Srirangam, the earthen area of Srirangam, Bhrit, Choni, Bhrit. One who is taking care of the earth by staying in the temple Srirangam. Rangachoni Bhridangri. The divine feet of Sri Ranganatha, of Srirangam temple, they are beautiful like lotus. So this pair of feet has been surrendered to totally by people who have got the self-control as their wealth and they are great scholars. They have already decided. So also we do. Vedantadeshika says, I follow those sages, those people who have got self-control over their faculties. So vayam stumaha, vayam is understood. We also praise. Hey Paduke, O divine sandals. So Paduka is a singular ekavachanam word and Paduke, dvivachanam word. So it is in Sambodhana Prathama Bhakti, we call it. So vocative case. Vili Vetrumai in Tamil. So He Paduke, O two divine sandals. Vayam Stumaha, Vayam is understood there. So we all praise you. So what do we do? Bhakti Prakhvapura Prabhanjana Jata Vati Sanida Spurat Chudaragvada Vasana Parimalasthani Paduke. The word Paduka or the word Paduke in Dvivachanam, in dual number, is given this adjective. So whom do we follow now? We follow a divine personality. Who is that divine personality? Prakhva Pura Prabhanjana. Pura Prabhanjana. Who burnt the three cities? They say gold, silver, and iron. So Tripurantaka. So Lord Shiva, Pura Prabhanjana. So we now follow the activity of Lord Shiva. So how is Lord Shiva? Bhakti Prakhva. So all of you must have heard about what we call the recently recited stotram everywhere called Mantra Raja Padastotram. Many of you would have gone to the temples of Lord Lakshmi Narasimha. Especially, there are so many Narasimha temples in Karnataka, in and around Bangalore and in and around Mysore. And also in Andhra Pradesh, many Narasimha temples. So when we go to the Narasimha temples, we will have to recite the Mantra Raja Padastotram, which you have heard about Ugram Veeram Mahavishnu Jalantam Sarvatomukham and so on. So this stotram has been composed by Lord Shiva and we understand that it is in Atharva Veda. So So Mantra Raja Padastotram. So Lord Shiva is the first and the best devotee of Mahavishnu. Being, of course, the grandson of the grandfather. Narayanan Nanmuhanai Padaithan. Nanmuhanum Tanmuhanai Shankaranai Padaithan, as the Alvar says in Divya Prabandham of Tamil. Therefore, Lord Shivan Narayana created Lord Brahma. In turn, Lord Brahma created Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva, so being the grandson, is the first and the best devotee of Lord Vishnu. So Bhakti Prakhva, so deeply devoted. Pura Prabhanjana, Lord Shiva. So he has got what? Matted locks of hair. Jata. So Jata, Vadi, Vati, a very big amount of matted hair, locks of matted hair. Sanida Spurat Chuda Aragvada. He wears flowers, Aragvada flowers. Chuda Aragvada. The top of his head, he has got the what you call in Tamil Konraipu. We call it in Sanskrit Ashoka flowers. So it's sometimes called Aragvada. So Aragvada is won by the locks of matted hair on the head of Lord Shiva. So how did the flowers come there? Because the flowers were offered to the divine sandals of Ranganatha. Yeah. So I will answer your query at the end of the session. So here the flowers offered to Ranganatha's divine sandals, and in turn the priest of the temple places the Shakari, namely the representative of the divine sandals, on the head of Lord Shiva, and therefore Lord Shiva's head is full of beautiful smell, vasana, the latent impression, and also parimala, the beautiful aroma on the head of Lord Shiva. Sthane paduke. So both are sweet smelling. The divine sandals of Sri Ranganatha and the head of Lord Shiva are sweet smelling because of the flowers. And so when we praise them, vayam stumaha, when we praise them, following the people of self-control and with great knowledge, decide that it is better to totally surrender to the divine sandals of what you call lotus feet of Lord Ranganatha. So with this, I shall recite the last verse of the Padukasahasram and then give you the time to discuss. So, Jayati iti Raja Sukti, Jayati Mukundasya Padukayugali, Tadubaya Dhanas Trivedim, Avandhayanto Jayanti Bhuvisantaha, Kavitarkika Simhaya Kalyana Gunashaline, Srimate Venkateshaya, Vedanta Gurave Namaha. So over to the participants that you can add your views. Somebody raised the hand. We will take up number 8, verse number 8 of the 3rd chapter, Prabhava Paddhati, the next session. There are so many details which are necessary to understand Vedantadeshika's Padukasahasram verses, but still within a few minutes of time, we are trying to make them brief. So this is only to enthuse all of you to take interest in the deeper study of the Padukasahasram. And we must all thank Vyoma Linguistics Lab Foundation, run by so many, led by Venkata Subramaniam Swami, Vaidyanathan Swami, Vishwanathan Swami, and assisted by Lakshman Raghuram and Maheshwari on the staff. Dhanyavadaha. So over to you for any. Somebody raised the hand. I want to talk to you, then I can talk to her. You can. If you make a message, you can have a Anvaya Kramam of the 7th sloka. Okay. The Anvaya Kramaha in the 7th sloka is this, namely, He Paduke, the first half you have the last word. So, He Paduke, Bhakti Prahvapura Prabhanjana Jata Vati Sanida Spurat Chuda Ragvada Vasana Parimalasthane, He Paduke, Vayam Stumaha. Vayam is understood, so we adore. So this is a Anvaya of the first half. The second half, so Vipaschitaha, Shamadhanaha, Nityam, Rangakshonibhrit, Angri Padma Yugali Purna Prapatte Phalam, Yat Uttam Sanam, Nischinvanti. So you can place the second half of the first half in Anvaya prose order. So Yat Vipaschitaha Shamadhanaha Nityam Uttam Sanam Rangakshoni Bridangri Pada Yugali Purna Prapatte Phalam Nischinvanti Tat He Paduke Bhakti Prakhvara Prabhanjana Jata Vati Sanida Sphurat Chudaragvada Vasana Parimalasthane Stumaha. So I shall read the Vanvaya in English also. Whatever has been taken as important by the people of self-control with great knowledge to decide that the very fruit of their existence is to make a total surrender to the lotus feet, the lotus pair of feet of Sri Ranganatha. We also follow them by praising you, O divine sandals, which has the beautiful sweet smell of the Arangvada flowers, which shine in the matted locks of hair of the head of Lord Shiva, who is very much devoted. Okay. Thank you so much. Shall we end the... Okay.